Listen now to the book, One Night with the Hybrid King, written by the author Anya Curves. If you want to buy the ebook, link in the description. Subscribe to the channel. Like and share. Chapter 121 Aria. Alexander sits beside me on the couch, his presence grounding me amidst the chaos. Caelum's office, with its towering bookshelves filled with ancient tomes and magical artifacts, feels suffocating. Caelum paces back and forth, his boots echoing against the dark wooden floor. Each step is deliberate and firm, but there's an undercurrent of restlessness. He looks like a caged wolf consumed by his thoughts. The soft light of the late afternoon streams through the large window behind him, illuminating his disheveled hair and highlighting the sharp glint in his greenish eyes. Drave said the twins could break the binding spell, Caelum mutters. Yes, but he also warned us, and rightly so, I retort, leaning forward. They're still children. They have no idea how to handle powers, if they even have any, to be honest. Caelum halts abruptly, turning to face me. His jawline tightens, and his eyes blaze with something between pride and defiance. They're my children. Of course they have powers, he declares, his voice resonating through the room with an almost exasperating confidence. I roll my eyes at his arrogance, letting out a loud sigh. Sure, but there's also a chance they don't, and there's nothing wrong with being just human, I counter, trying to keep my tone calm even as irritation simmers within me. Caelum scoffs, his frustration evident, and resumes pacing. His steps are heavier now, almost as if he's trying to stomp out any lingering doubt. Beside me, Alexander remains silent for a moment, but the warmth of his hand entwining with mine offers a comforting contrast. He gives my hand a gentle squeeze, and when I look at him, his gaze is calm, a perfect counterbalance to Caelum's storm. We can always go to Grimroot Forest and track down whoever cast the spell, Alexander suggests, his voice steady and measured. The black market always has the best enchantresses for forbidden magic. Caelum stops mid-stride and spins around, his eyes sparking with intensity. It's far too dangerous to take Aria to Grimroot Forest, Caelum counters, his tone laden with authority. Alexander straightens beside me, and I can feel the tension rising in him. Aria won't be alone. I'll protect her, Alexander responds, his voice resolute. You're still recovering from a near-death experience, cousin. Don't play the hero unnecessarily, Caelum argues. I glance between them, feeling my patience rapidly wearing thin. The air practically reeks of testosterone, a dense mix of dominance and stubbornness, as they circle me like territorial wolves. Irritated, I raise my voice. Do you two realize that I can defend myself now that I've been turned, right? I snap impatiently. Both of them look at me, their faces flushed with embarrassment, before averting their eyes. You haven't had your first transformation yet, Aria, Caelum argues, his voice softer now but still tinged with concern. Your temper, the struggle with growing rage, something could trigger you, and you might lose control. It's risky. I roll my eyes again, the frustration bubbling in my throat. What's risky is my children being bound to your brother. I shoot back, crossing my arms. Thorn nearly died from the spell Drave cast on him and Aloan. 3 heads thinking together are better than just the 2 of you running off alone. By the gods, how can she be so stubborn? Caelum's thought cuts through my mind, accompanied by a wave of irritation. I'm not stubborn. I snap, my tone sharp. Both of them stare at me in surprise, but it's Caelum who looks away first. He walks toward the window, his shoulders tense, his silhouette framed against the pale twilight. He remains silent for a moment, as though contemplating something important. Finally, he turns back to us, his voice breaking the silence. We leave for Grimroot Forest tomorrow, Caelum declares at last, turning his back to us once more. I had never set foot in Grimroot Forest. I always imagined it as a chaotic place, full of secrets, mysterious people, and forbidden spells. Grimroot Forest has long been considered the outskirts of the enchantress community, yet now I see it's more of a resilient community that managed to survive despite all the rebel attacks against them. The streets are crowded with stalls selling enchanted spices and objects. Some enchantresses advertise their skills, claiming they can predict the future or bring back a lost mate with a snap of their fingers. The smell of the alleys makes me feel a bit dizzy, and the cacophony of voices becomes overwhelming. Alexander drapes his arm protectively around my shoulders, pulling me closer. I focus my hearing solely on the rhythm of his heartbeat, trying to drown out the noisy chaos around us. Some of my spies uncovered information about an enchantress who worked for Drave, Caelum declares as we head toward a quieter, elevated street. The houses here are made of enchanted stone, I can see the runes glowing faintly, and the air around them hums with magic. I'm captivated by the unexpected beauty of this place. I never imagined this place would be so full of, I murmur, awestruck, life. Alexander finishes for me, and I smile, acknowledging his spot-on guess. Enchantresses are a resilient people. It's a shame how Caelum has handled them here in the kingdom. In Syltirion, it's far more magical. I hope to take you there someday, Alexander whispers near my ear. We stop in front of a magical antique shop. Without checking if it's open, Caelum pushes through the door with urgency, and it slams against the wall. A youthful enchantress with milky white eyes and brown skin appears from the back of the shop, her hands raised, 2 orbs of energy crackling between them, ready to strike the intruders. When she recognizes that it's King Caelum standing in her shop, her expression shifts to one of surprise, and her hands drop. I notice her heartbeat quicken, her breathing becoming shallow. Your Majesty. The enchantress bows respectfully. We approach her cautiously, with Caelum taking the lead in the interrogation. We need to know some things about the spells you crafted for Drave, Caelum states gravely. The enchantress looks at the 3 of us, her wide eyes brimming with fear. She can't be more than 20, a girl really. I swear I didn't know about the attack, Your Majesty, she cries out desperately. Caelum's eyes narrow, and I hear her heart skip a beat, revealing the blatant lie she's just told. And I didn't know the sky was blue, Caelum replies with sharp sarcasm. We want to know about the use of forbidden lifebond magic. Did you cast it for him? The young woman shakes her head vigorously. No, Your Majesty. That requires a level of study far beyond what I possess, she answers nervously. How can we undo this spell? I ask, stepping forward. She glances at me, shaking her head again. A lifebond spell can't be broken, she says quickly. What can be done is to transfer it to another person. What do you mean? Alexander presses. A lifebond spell is powerful. It doesn't just connect souls. It literally ties one person's vital essence to another's, the girl begins to explain. There's no way to break it. We're talking about lives here, a transfer of energy so deep that undoing it is nearly impossible. What can be done is to redirect the bond, transferring it from one person to another. But that requires an exceptionally powerful enchantress, someone with familiarity and mastery over forbidden magic. It's not something just anyone can do. Caelum, Alexander, and I exchange silent glances. A growing tension settles between us. We don't need to speak to know we're all thinking of the same person. The only enchantress we know capable of performing such a feat. Weeks ago, Alexander breaks the silence as we step out of the shop, the door creaking faintly behind us. The air outside is cool, but it doesn't ease the weight we carry. I hired an enchantress to track Seraphina's spells. She can help us find her. We walk through the narrow, winding streets of the outskirts, illuminated by magical lamps casting a bluish glow. Shadows dance around us as we approach the place Alexander mentioned. The enchantress Alexander referred to as a much older and more charismatic man. Brandon, I thought you'd forgotten about the order, the man declares cheerfully. I raise an eyebrow at the false name Alexander seems to be using for this disguise. Alexander, with an awkward smile, just shrugs as if he doesn't want to elaborate. Here's my friend, the enchantress continues. He opens a magical map on the counter. It's a massive, colorful map with floating lines like a hologram. All the spells used by this enchantress in the last year. I lean over the map, studying the lines and symbols closely. The dates float in front of me, pulsing gently as if they have a life of their own. Then, something catches my eye. Here, I point to a specific spot on the map, my finger tracing the glowing line connecting to a relevant date. It's the day of the attack. What spell did she use here? I ask. The enchantress looks at the spot I indicated, scratching his chin thoughtfully. Shifter spell, miss. Looks like it lasted for 24 hours. And she used it quite a bit in this hotel. Who do you think she was trying to deceive? He asks with a playful tone. But I don't laugh. My hands tremble slightly at his explanation, and my heart feels heavy in my chest. I glance at Alexander, and our eyes meet. His expression changes, from surprise to regret. He seems lost in thought while I fight the sadness threatening to overwhelm me. You were telling the truth, Alexander whispers. Yes, I always have, I reply, my voice tinged with hurt. You really didn't believe me. Forgive me, Aria. It's just that. Alexander's eyes shift to Caelum, who is a few steps behind me. I can't deny the history between you two. I sigh and nod. I know. But that's exactly what it is. The past, I respond with conviction. Before we can say anything more, Caelum's voice slices through the air like a sharp blade. Can we focus on finding my wife? He speaks with a dryness and acidity that makes me turn to look at him. Sorry, Alexander and I murmur, our voices laced with embarrassment. Chapter 122, Aria. I watch Thorn and Aloan play in the vast garden behind the castle. We've been living here ever since Caelum regained control, and it's such a huge place that I can't help but feel a bit out of place. The children love it, though, and to them, everything is fun and amazing. I sit on a marble bench, lost in my thoughts, until I catch the scent of mint and apple. The smell of Alexander. Even before he comes into my line of sight, I already smile. Alexander appears behind me, covering my eyes with his hands. Guess who it is? He whispers into my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. I can smell you long before you get here, you know? I reply, grinning. Yes, I know. But that doesn't mean it's lost its charm, Alexander says, kissing my neck, making me giggle. He moves his hand away from my face and sits beside me on the bench. We kiss each other tenderly with affection. How was the meeting with the council? I ask, anxious. I can't be part of it because I'm not of noble blood, and it frustrates me. It's about my children's lives, and yet I don't have the right to be part of the discussion. Alexander lets out a heavy sigh, his eyes landing on the children chasing butterflies. Caelum wants to invade Syltirion and bring Seraphina by force. But the council, with all the bureaucracy and diplomacy, doesn't think it's feasible due to the alliance between the realms, Alexander explains, his voice heavy. War never does anyone any good, I reply thoughtfully. I don't want unnecessary bloodshed. Is there no other way? Yes, there is. I have friends, contacts in the neighboring kingdom that borders Syltirion. I proposed reaching out to them to find a secret and safe passage to Syltirion, Alexander says. Can I go with you? I ask, worried. I don't want to lose Alexander again. I want to protect him, even though I don't know how. He smiles at me, a reassuring smile. I can't imagine us going without you, my love, he responds kindly. His lips kiss my forehead, and his arm slips around my shoulders. Are you ready for tonight? I feel my body tense at the mention of tonight. My first transformation. Alexander notices the change in me, and his fingers caress my skin, calming me. Does it hurt a lot? I ask quietly, scared. It takes a moment for Alexander to respond, his voice soft and calming. Yes, it's a pain I can't quite describe, Aria, Alexander says seriously. But it's something so magnificent, the wolf that rises within us, that primal beastly side. It's so powerful, so incredible that it doesn't compare to the pain of the first time, he explains with anticipation in his voice. I'll be with you tonight. I promise everything will be fine. Do you want to help me put the kids to bed tonight? I ask Caelum as we walk down the hallway. I hear his heartbeat steady calm, without any change. He looks at me surprised and a sly smile spreads across his face. Yes, of course. I'd love to, he agrees cheerfully, making me laugh. How were you managing when I was at the hospital? I ask, curious. Caelum finally slips his hands into his pants pockets and shrugs his shoulders. I didn't, he responds with a hint of embarrassment in his voice. My mother and Lyra, your mother, took care of Aloan most of the time. I nod, understanding that Caelum doesn't know much about parenting, and I can't blame him. I didn't know anything either. My mother helped me along the way. Well, get ready then, it's going to be a battle, but I'll help you, I reply with a chuckle. Getting the kids ready for bed with Caelum's presence turned into a mini-party for the twins. They both wanted to talk, play, and share all the new things they had discovered within the castle. Caelum tried to be authoritative, giving orders and rushing them, but that only scared them at first. How about this? Thorn, you tell Caelum what you discovered while Aloan brushes her teeth, and then you brush your teeth, and Aloan tells him what she discovered. I suggest as Caelum, and I put the twins in their pajamas. The twins cheer excitedly at the idea, and soon the dynamic flows with the final preparations. I tuck Aloan into bed, and Caelum does the same with Thorn. Good night, my little angels, sleep well, I announce before closing the door. Wow, that really was a battle, Caelum comments, panting. He leans against the wall near the door, and lets out a laugh. That's why I don't let them have sweets after 7, I reply, smiling. That makes sense, Caelum agrees. I stay by his side, leaning against the wall, staring at the window on the other side of the hallway. The full moon is almost at its peak, and I already feel something inside me shifting. Thank you for today, Aria. You're an excellent mother. I couldn't have asked for a better woman to have my children. Caelum thinks kindly. I turn to look at him, and he's already staring at me with his emerald green eyes. I give him a shy smile and lean my shoulder against his. I smell Alexander's scent again before he appears in the hallway. I stay still, but Caelum moves, creating a safe distance between us. Alexander appears a few meters from where we are. "Are you ready, my love?" Alex asks, his voice full of anxiety. I notice he's only wearing shorts and flip-flops. His toned body stirs a sudden desire in me, the urge to grab him and kiss him spreading throughout my body. My eyes stay fixed on his appearance, and seeming to notice my trance, he lifts my chin as he gets closer to me. "I'm up here, my little wolf," he says with a grin. "Oh yes, I think I am," I stutter, blushing. "Are you coming, Caelum?" Alexander asks. "Any help is welcome, don't you think?" Caelum and I exchange a quick glance, and I encourage him to join us with a smile. "Of course, anything I can help with," he responds. The three of us walk from the hallway to the outside of the castle. "Where's it going to happen?" I ask, worried. The moon is almost at its peak, and I feel my body tingling. "We can do it near the forest. There are rabbits and other rodents to hunt. Plus, being away from the castle, there won't be any risks," Caelum answers seriously. Alexander nods and holds my hand. I follow Caelum to the location he indicated. The forest is dark, only getting a little light from the full moon, and yet, I can see everything clearly. I notice Alexander taking off his flip-flops and shorts, leaving him in just dark blue boxer shorts. He notices my gaze and laughs. "The clothes will tear in the middle of the process if I don't take them off beforehand. I'm just making it easier," he explains. "Do I have to take mine off too?" I ask, startled. "No," Caelum answers quickly. "I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to." "You decide, my love," Alexander responds, kissing my lips gently. "Whatever makes you comfortable." I consider his advice and decide to take off my shoes, jacket, and part of my pants. Caelum and Alexander look at me with desire. Caelum only removes his shirt and shoes. Before I can say anything to ease the embarrassment, I feel the transformation begin. I collapse to the ground in an unreal pain. I feel my insides twisting and my toes starting to break. "Don't fight it, Aria," Alexander says with a firm voice. "Let the pain become part of you." I roar in pain as I watch my fingers turn into sharp, white claws. I dig them into the ground, and my body stretches forward, my spine cracking and breaking. Everything transforms, everything changes, and I feel overwhelmed by the ferocity of my wolf and the pain of my human form. I focus my gaze on the full moon above me until the transformation completes. I watch Caelum and Alexander also transform, but they don't scream in pain or twist like I did. I do notice discomfort in them, though, as two massive wolves materialize in front of me. As soon as I notice Caelum's transformation, I feel something tug inside me. I see his white fur and golden eyes, and I'm fascinated by them. Caelum, in his wolf form, is magnificent, beautiful. "So, you at least think I'm handsome as a wolf, Aria?" I hear Caelum's voice purr in my mind. Shit, he can read my thoughts too? Chapter 123, Aria. "Okay, I need you to listen to your grandmothers, all right?" My voice sounds calm, but inside, a wave of anxiety washes over me. My eyes meet Thorn and Aloan's, sitting side by side on the couch in the living room. Their small bodies seem lost in the couch, which is far too big for them, but their legs swing nervously, betraying how restless they are. The gleam in their eyes, a mix of fear and sadness, tightens my heart. With every word I speak, it feels like I'm asking more than they can bear. They don't want me to leave. And if I'm honest, I don't want to leave them either. But what if they're mean to us? Thorn asks, his voice breaking, his large eyes starting to fill with tears. The whiny tone makes him seem even smaller than he is, his fragility laid bare in a way that makes me want to hold him forever. "They won't be mean, my prince. They'll take care of you," I reassure him, trying to project a calm I'm far from feeling. My hand strokes the soft strands of his hair as I try to ignore the weight in my own voice. He's so small, so innocent, and trusts me so much that any insecurity on my part could undo the little courage he's trying to gather. "Do we have to call the other one Grandma?" "Lyra doesn't like it much when we call her Grandma," Aloan comments shyly, her voice so soft that I almost can't hear her. Her tiny fingers play with the hem of her dress, a nervous gesture she makes whenever she's trying to figure out something that troubles her. I crouch down to her level, holding her delicate hand in mine. "You can call her Isolde if she prefers, okay?" I answer gently. "Mommy will be back soon, I promise." I kiss each of them, feeling the warmth of their cheeks and inhaling that unique childhood scent, a mix of purity and mischief. Alexander approaches and kneels in front of the twins, with that smile that always helps them relax. He takes Thorn and Aloan's little hands, as if about to share a very important secret. I promise that when I come back, I'll tell you new stories about dragons and damsels, stories even better than the last ones, okay? His voice is full of enthusiasm, and the kids can't help but give a small smile. I watch as he wins their attention with his ability to create magical worlds, even in difficult moments. Caelum, on the other hand, is more reserved. He approaches silently, his presence almost intimidating in the way it fills the space. He crouches in front of the two, but doesn't try to adopt the warm tone Alexander uses. "We'll be back soon," he simply states, his voice firm and direct. There are no grand promises, no fanciful tales, just a statement. He believes that this is enough, but the look in the children's eyes shows they want more. They want something he still doesn't know how to give. I watch all of this in silence, feeling a mix of frustration and understanding. Caelum is distant with them, treating them like mini adults, expecting them to understand things far beyond their capacity. That cold, practical demeanor doesn't build bonds, doesn't make them feel safe or loved as they should. My chest tightens, and an unwanted thought arises. He will never be able to create the bond they need if he keeps acting this way. And then he casts a glance in my direction. A deep, almost penetrating look that makes me wonder if he heard my thoughts again. "Caelum, are you listening to me?" I think timidly, but there's no response. I breathe a sigh of relief at that. My first transformation was full of surprises. Adrenaline ran through my veins like liquid fire, and every sensation was amplified. Every sound, smell, and touch became vibrant. Alexander was right when he said it would be amazing to discover this animal's side. He wasn't exaggerating. The freedom is overwhelming, as if all the chains that tie me to humanity broke at once. I ran faster than I've ever run, hunted alongside my mate in his wolf form, his fur blending with the dark night. But what surprised me the most was the connection with Caelum in his transformed state, him being able to read my thoughts while I'm transformed. I tried to do the same with Alexander, but there was no tug I felt with Caelum. "We lycans don't have telepathy, Aria. This is new for me too," Caelum responded when I tried to get Alexander's attention. Now, I try to avoid transforming when Caelum is also transformed. The thought that he might hear what I don't say to anyone else haunts me. It's like walking naked under a spotlight that only he controls. I haven't told Alexander about this, nor anyone else. Something holds me back, something I can't explain. Maybe the fear of how he would react. And deep down, I'm almost certain that Caelum also keeps this secret. I don't like it. I don't like this unsolicited intimacy. It's a new weight between us, an invisible bond one don't want to have. "Is everyone ready?" Caelum asks suddenly, pulling me back to the present. He's serious, his jaw tense as his eyes observe something beyond me, something only he seems to see. Alexander and I nod and get into the car. The trip is filled with tension because of Caelum's thoughts directed at me. It seems like he can't think of anything other than me. It's always something about my scent, my eyes, my lips, my supposed stubbornness, and how I'm making a mistake by staying with Alexander. I try to ignore it, but it's impossible. I feel my face warm with the strength of his thoughts, even though he doesn't say a word. "Can you go over the plan again, please?" I ask, breaking the silence inside the car after the first 2 hours of the trip. Caelum clears his throat and looks at me through the rearview mirror. He and Alexander are sitting in the front seats. Well, Alexander figured out a way for us to get into Syltirion without being noticed. For that, I'll have to cast a camouflage spell on us and then head to the castle to get Seraphina, Caelum responds seriously. "Seems pretty simple," I comment, concerned. "It has to be. We can't attract too much attention," Caelum retorts. "We need to be as fast and discreet as possible." "Don't worry, Aria," Alexander interjects with a more optimistic tone. "We've also stationed some soldiers at the border in case we need reinforcements." I feel more reassured with the new information and flash an optimistic smile at Alexander. Hours later, we reach the border of the two realms, and I can see the difference between them. On one side, the lush green and order of Veridiana. On the other, Syltirion, a land steeped in decay. The houses near the border look like ghosts of themselves, their walls cracked and windows broken. The air is heavy, as if something invisible and malevolent hovers there. "I didn't think the kingdom was this decrepit," Caelum comments, and for the first time, I hear a note of genuine concern in his voice. He parks the car inside a dense forest on our side of the border. We get out of the car in silence, and Caelum quickly casts the camouflage spell. I feel a slight pressure in the air around me, like an invisible veil wrapping around my body. "Remember, we're just Caelum says seriously. Travelers. Alexander and I respond simultaneously. We cross the border with an ease that unsettles me. Every shadow seems to stretch longer than it should, every sound muffled, as if the very realm of Syltirion conspires against our presence. The landscape is a portrait of decay. Once majestic houses are now crumbling under the weight of time and abandonment. Collapsed roofs, shattered windows, and walls overtaken by dry vines tell the story of a kingdom that has been forgotten by even itself. The capital, when we finally reach it, is chaos. The streets are crowded with people with vacant looks, like human shadows trying to survive in a place that seems to have lost any trace of hope. The smell of rotting trash mixes with the heavy air, making me nauseous. Rats run freely between piles of debris, and barefoot children, as thin as twigs, watch us pass with suspicion. The blatant poverty contrasts cruelly with the grandeur Syltirion once represented. How did this not reach us? My voice comes out in a trembling whisper as I observe the misery around me. My chest tightens with a feeling of helplessness and indignation. It's easy to maintain a facade of prosperity. You just have to avoid drawing too much attention to yourself, Caelum responds, bitterness in his voice. The negotiations with them were getting harder, but I didn't think it would reach this level. His words hang in the heavy air, and I find myself wondering how something so devastating could have gone unnoticed for so long. Magic permeates the environment in an oppressive, almost suffocating way. It's not the vibrant magic I feel in Veridiana, full of life and energy. Here, it's dense, dark, like an invisible fog that carries despair in every particle. It's impossible to ignore. The entire city feels consumed by this disordered, shadowy force, as if a spell has drained all the vitality from the place and replaced it with chaos. Finally, we reach the meeting point with Alexander's contacts. It's a discreet place, almost unnoticeable among the ruins. A man with a tired appearance awaits us, his face marked by worry lines, his eyes constantly scanning the surroundings as if the very shadow might bring him danger. Things aren't easy around here, Alex, a man says, concerned. Seraphina was seen at her family's ruined castle. They say she's been kidnapping lycans and doing strange experiments on them. The mention of Seraphina makes my body stiffen. My heart races as I imagine what she could be planning. Experiments. The word echoes in my mind like a grim warning. Thank you for telling us. We'll be careful, Alexander responds cautiously. The contact leads us through a maze of narrow, almost claustrophobic alleys. We pass through such tight spaces that we can barely walk side by side. The walls of the buildings around us are covered in moss and soot, the exposed bricks cracked, and doors sealed with rotting planks. There's an unsettling silence, broken only by the sound of our footsteps and occasionally a distant meow or the noise of something moving in the shadows. Eventually, the man leads us to the edge of a thicket. He stops and points to the dense vegetation ahead. Just head straight and you'll reach the back of the castle grounds, the man says. The place is abandoned, no guards or anything like that. Seraphina is alone there. The idea of Seraphina, the woman who has already shown she's capable of anything, isolated in a ruined castle, fills me with a kind of apprehension that's hard to define. It's clear that something's wrong. Alexander and Caelum move ahead, and I follow them with cautious steps. Every snap of a dry twig beneath our feet sounds like thunder, a constant reminder that we're entering enemy territory. The tension in the air is palpable, and each of us seems to carry our own dark thoughts as we move forward.
Chapter 124, Seraphina. No, please, you don't have to do this. The young lycan's voice echoes through the dark, stuffy hall, filled with pure desperation. She struggles against the stone table, the enchanted chains creaking under the force of her futile resistance. Fear radiates from her like a palpable wave, filling the already heavy air with the metallic scent of sweat and blood. I swear I won't say anything, please. Get me out of here. I don't say a word. There's no more room for promises or compassion. I grab a filthy cloth and shove it roughly into her mouth, silencing the sharp screams that are beginning to tear at my patience. I've heard this desperate melody too many times. I've engraved it in my mind, haunting me in the rare moments of sleep. This cannot break me now. Not when I'm so close. I begin reciting the spell, each ancient, harsh word slipping from my tongue like poison. The hall around me seems to contract with my voice, the lights flickering weakly, shadows dancing on the soot-stained walls. I'm betting everything on this moment. It has to work. I need it to. With a swift, precise motion, I drive the blade into the young lycan's throat. The warm blood bursts forth in a pulsing stream, flowing through the grooves carved into the stone of the table. The marks flare with a vibrant red glow, the entire hall illuminated by the macabre light. The ground begins to tremble, a distant whisper, or perhaps a wail, seems to echo from the unseen depths. For a moment, my heart races in anticipation. Have I finally done it? Will the entity deign to respond? But then, as if the universe itself wanted to mock me, everything stops. The tremor ceases. The lights go out, and the lifeless body of the lycan, now devoid of any trace of soul, begins to disintegrate. In mere seconds, all that remains is a pile of ash upon the stone. My scream of frustration explodes like thunder in the hall. The rage burns inside me, fueled by exhaustion and despair. I can't control the flow of magic escaping from my body in a destructive wave, sending utensils and objects flying, crashing against the walls. The adrenaline still courses through my veins, but it's useless. All this effort, all this sacrifice for nothing. What the hell? I scream, furious. I step down from the altar with heavy footsteps. My body is weak, drained by the magic and continuous effort. It feels as if an invisible hand is squeezing my skull, and my vision wavers for a moment before stabilizing. I ignore the fatigue and approach the table where the forbidden grimoire rests, its ancient pages open, revealing the summoning spell I've read so many times I could recite it with my eyes closed. I flip through the book with trembling fingers, reviewing each word, each line of the incantation again. The faint light of the hall illuminates the detailed runes, but I can't find anything wrong. Nothing. And that drives me mad. What am I missing? My voice comes out low, almost a whisper, heavy with frustration. The weight of all this threatens to crush me. My kingdom, Syltirion, lies in ruins. The people I should protect are dying or disappearing. Care and my family gone. The magic that once sustained our land is rotting, like a wound that never heals. If I fail to summon this entity, if I fail, Syltirion will be wiped off the map. There will be nothing left but ashes and memories. My heart aches at the thought of it, and the pressure in my chest builds, nearly suffocating me. Seraphina, step away from that book now. Caelum commands from behind me. I jump in surprise and turn to face him. In the weak magical light hanging from the ceiling, I see the trio invading my space. I let out a cynical smile in his direction, hiding all the emotions boiling inside me: anger, exhaustion, frustration. I don't give them the luxury of seeing my weaknesses. I raise my hands slowly, a gesture of feigned surrender, as if I were a card player revealing my hand. I feel the weight of the magical auras emanating from Caelum and Alexander. The energy surrounding them is weak, unstable, and it makes me laugh. The laugh bursts out, spontaneous and cutting, echoing through the rune-covered walls. I can't believe it, Caelum. I declare with mockery in my voice. Your enchantress powers were never much to begin with, I admit. But now, I pause theatrically, gesturing exaggeratedly as my eyes scan the three of them, one by one, like a predator assessing its prey. They're dwindling, fading. And him? I point to Alexander. I notice the engagement ring on Aria's finger, the human who's not so human anymore. You sacrificed the most precious thing you had, your powers, so your cousin could marry the woman you love? I delivered him to you on a silver platter. All you had to do was let him die, and she was yours. The silence that follows is thick, almost tangible. I can feel the impact of my words hitting them, like poisoned arrows. Caelum's jaw clenches, rigid like a stone about to crack. Aria's eyes widen, surprise etched in every line of her face, while Alexander shows a brief flicker of shock. But he quickly recovers, as he always does, hiding any weakness behind a mask of self-control. Oh, the little couple didn't know. I comment with false modesty. I make a theatrical grimace, as if mourning the revealed secret. Well, Alex, what are you now? A third of an enchantress? Maybe you can enchant something, a rabbit or a drunk human. I hope you use your powers better than your cousin, I suggest with acid in my voice. Though, let's be honest, the bar's not exactly high, is it? How about I sink my claws into your throat if you don't shut your mouth? Aria declares bravely. Tone it down, little wolf. You can barely transform properly, I retort with superiority. Don't think that just because you're now a shifter, we're on equal footing. You were born human, and that's how you'll always be to me. Enough! Caelum intervenes, his voice booming like thunder. We came here to take you back to Veridiana. You and what army? I ask with amusement. We both know you can't take me as a prisoner. Political alliances carry weight, don't they? I speak with sarcasm. We can make a deal, Caelum suggests. You undo the spell Drave cast on the twins, the life-linking, and I promise to help you save Syltirion. The proposal is intriguing, but there's one crucial detail that will never make it worth agreeing to what he's asking. Chapter 125, Aria. My blood burns like molten lava as Seraphina remains astonishingly relaxed before us. Despite clearly being at a disadvantage, she shows not a hint of apprehension. Her golden eyes, filled with an almost supernatural malice, slide over us as if she were watching three foolish children playing at being heroes in a world that is beyond their reach. This insolent posture only fuels my fury further. She crosses her arms casually, as though Caelum hadn't just proposed a desperate deal. For a moment, everything seems frozen, the world holding its breath. My mind screams in protest against the idea of offering her anything. But if Seraphina is the only one who can save my children's lives, I'd even sell my soul. No, thank you, she replies with an icy sharpness, her voice echoing through the hall like the sound of breaking glass. I feel my chest burn with indignation. The disbelief hits me like a violent wave, stealing the air from my lungs. What did you say? I ask, incredulous and furious. Have you looked around? Syltirion is falling apart, Seraphina. You'd rather see your kingdom perish than save your husband's children. The sneering smile she throws my way is like a slap to the face. Her eyes gleam with something between amusement and pure disdain, as if my outburst was exactly what she expected. I'd love to say yes, she declares, her shoulders rising in a careless gesture. But that would be a lie. The truth is, Caelum is practically dead weight, just like my kingdom now, Seraphina explains with acid in her voice, turning to him. Your job, my dear, was to make heirs. Hybrid heirs could save Syltirion. But you alone, without your powers, you're just an ordinary husband with a pretty crown on your head. As for your children, that's another story. Seraphina begins to move, her thin, elegant fingers gliding over the pages of the forbidden grimoire with disturbing intimacy. Her voice takes on a velvety tone, like a predator about to strike. If you let me use the twins to save Syltirion, I can sever their bond with Drave and pass it to you, or anyone else you might be interested in. Maybe the new Alexander, who knows? Seraphina laughs maliciously. My blood pounds in my ears, my heart racing frantically. The anger surges like a ravenous wave, and, before I can stop it, it consumes me entirely. In a quick, animalistic move, I lunge at her. My claws gleam in the faint light, my fangs bared as I let fury guide me. The impact of my body against hers echoes through the hall. Seraphina hits the floor, and I grip her neck tightly, my nails threatening to pierce her pale skin. You'll never lay your filthy hands on my children again, you bitch? I snarl at her, ready to rip her throat out. But Seraphina, with a twisted smile on her lips, releases a shockwave against my back. My entire body contracts, the pain spreading like fire as I'm thrown aside. The intensity of the attack makes the ground beneath me feel like it's spinning. Control your bitch, Caelum. Seraphina spits the words with disdain. I rise quickly, the bitter taste of pain replaced by fierce determination. Before Seraphina can fully recover, I grab her calf and sink my claws into her flesh. Her scream of pain cuts through the air, and I see the crackle of electricity form in her hands once again. This time I'm faster. I dodge the attack and slam her to the ground once again, holding her firmly. My face is so close to hers that I can see the hatred in her eyes, but I don't care. My focus is clear, my threat even clearer. You'll do the bond-switching spell, or I'll rip your head off right here and feed it to whatever monster you tried to summon. I threaten, my rage boiling over. Feel free, darling. Without me, you'll never be able to sever the bond between the twins and Drave. You're much more desperate than I am. Give me what I want, and only then will I do what you're asking. Seraphina snaps back, each word dripping with self-assurance. Never. We'll find someone else to do the spell, Caelum responds. Seraphina laughs, a bitter, contemptuous sound that echoes like a slap. Sure, because there are so many enchantresses with forbidden magic just hanging around, right? Her words drip with sarcasm, and I clench my fists, struggling not to rip out her throat. I'll do it, Alexander suddenly declares, shattering the tension like glass. We all turn to look at him. If what Seraphina says is true, I'm a hybrid now. I can take the twins' place in the spell to save Syltirion, right? No, I respond firmly. I release Seraphina and move toward Alexander. I just got you back. I can't lose you like this. My hands move toward Alexander's face, feeling his stubbled chin between my fingers. His blue eyes, so deep and gentle, look at me with a peace that sends shivers down my spine, calming me. Aria, I love you. I love you and the twins more than anything in this world. You know that, don't you? Alexander asks softly, his hands wrapping around my waist. I nod. That's why I can't let anything happen to you again. Thorn and Aloan need you. His eyes shift to Caelum. They need both of you. They need all three of us. I need you. I love you. I can't lose you, Alexander. I respond, my voice full of longing. Alexander pulls me closer, into an affectionate and protective embrace. You have me forever. I love you. When we pull apart, I feel like part of me is breaking. The conviction in his eyes is unshakable, and it destroys me more than any spell could. Deal, Seraphina? Alexander asks. Me in place of the twins? She lifts her chin, and for the first time, her expression isn't filled with mockery, but with a seriousness that makes everything even more real. Yes, deal, she replies, each word falling like a stone in my stomach. Then it's settled? You do the bond-switching spell, and I'll help you save the kingdom of Syltirion. Seraphina nods, and I feel like the ground beneath my feet is crumbling. My hands tremble, my heart shattered by the reality that Alexander is willing to sacrifice himself for all of us. If you like it, subscribe, share, comment, and like. If you want to read the book, link in the description.